Hey everyone, Cheri your dysgraphy consultant. I'm here today with Jen Sopka. Did I say it?
Sopka.
I'm
Sopka.
close. She has a wonderful YouTube channel I'd like to share with you today. Welcome. It's good to have you, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you become an OT?
So it was a very long time ago because I've been doing this for 36 years. When I started in college, I was actually going to school to be a O&M instructor, and it just wasn't really what I wanted. So I took an aptitude test, which they now do, routinely in high school here, but back then they did not. And actually, my first choice that came back was physical therapy, and my second choice was occupational therapy, and I'd never heard of it. So I went to observe both, and I clearly was an OT. I was just cut out to be an OT. And
making sure that the audience knows, you said O&M. Tell us what that acronym stands for.
Oh, orientation and mobility, sorry. So for the visually impaired.
No, I knew that, but I wanted to make sure the audience did.
So for the visually impaired, so I was definitely drawn to a people field, and I knew that I wanted to work with people, and I always thought I wanted to work with kids, but it just, everything kind of fell into place, and I've never looked back, and I've never regretted it, and I've done pretty much the gamut when it comes to kids.
Okay, so tell me what you're doing right now.
So right now, right now it's COVID.
Yes.
So I am home doing all Zooms. But prior to COVID, I had 3 different jobs. So my first job was working with the school system in Michigan for the 0 to 3 population going into the homes.
Okay.
That's through the schools. And the second job was I work in a state school for the deaf and hard of hearing.
Okay.
And then my last job, I had a clinic that I was running, where an outpatient clinic for kids, but the gamut from 0 to 18.
So you really are looking at that whole up until 18-year-old environment. So no, it doesn't really matter what the kid has going on. You're there as an opportunity to help them.
Yes.
What is the focus of most of your caseload?
So the autism population is pretty high up there. But, I guess in general, it's just a developmental delay, is what I would kind of classify it as.
So anything that is not the typical development that has been documented throughout the world.
Exactly.
So what does that mean that your day looks like? How are you saying 5 patients, 6 patients a day?
When I go to the homes, I see, because I'm driving in between homes and I cover a county. So I see 5 a day, give or take. And when I'm in the school, I also work with a COTA, so she is seeing her caseload. And then on top of that, I probably see 8 kids a day.
Okay.
And the school is a little bit different in that it's a pretty small school. And we have a lot of flexibility. So we can go into the classroom, we could pull them out, we could go into gym, we go on field trips, we go into the art class, we see them at lunch. So you really get a gamut, like a good picture of how they're doing throughout their day.
How many students does the COTA have on their caseload?
So she's there 2 days a week and I'm there 1 day a week. And she sees, 8 to 10 kids a day.
Okay. I see that to be reasonable. I keep hearing some OTs telling me that they're seeing 50 to 100 kids, and I'm like, how?
So especially with the deaf and hard of hearing, it's super hard to do a group because you need to command their attention. And we're really we're pulling them out to teach a skill and then throwing them back in the classroom and, talking to the teacher about how they can follow through, and hopefully it all works together.
And I like that fact that you're able to go on field trips. In the contracts that I've had with some of the schools, that's just not available to me. So that is nice that you're able to go on field trips.
Yeah.
And you said Michigan. So you must get some nice trips up to the lake.
We actually, truth be told, come down south and we come to Ohio to the lake. Everyone goes up
Okay.
north and we go south. So it actually works out perfectly.
Well, there we are.
There you go. Wasn't expecting that.
No, I wasn't. Which lake? Is that Lake Erie then?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'm on the other side of Lake Erie, a couple hours east, but
Where are you?
I'm in Pennsylvania. So we get the tip of Lake Erie as well.
There you go.
So
I grew up in Pennsylvania, so I
yeah,
love
what part?
northeast foothills of the Poconos, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area.
Ah, perfect. So did you go to University of Scranton or Misericordia?
No, I went to Cleveland. I
Came
went
out
to
to Cleveland. You got
I went
get out of the Poconos.
I got out of the Poconos and I went to Cleveland, which
Hmm.
I absolutely love. And that was my first job in a university hospitals there. And
Hmm.
I have
I
a
I have
fondness
my
for Cleveland.
bachelor's degree from Misericordia,
Oh, there you go.
but
Yeah.
I'm a. It takes me about 2 hours to get up to Misericordia.
Okay.
So I'm down in near Reading area.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I went to Kutztown first. That's where I was going to school for the O&M.
Oh, well, I'm 12 miles from the university.
Exactly. So I know exactly where you are. That's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah. Um, so what is your favorite do-it-yourself treatment tool? What do you like to create, like you use over and over again?
Um, I guess with my little ones, what I do the most often is the blanket swing. Um, it it calms them down,
Mm,
it revs them up, it brings out language. You hit vestibular. It's super fun. Parents can do it, in the evening to help their kids sleep or to just help wake them up or get them tired. There's so many different versions of it.
mm-hmm,
Um, I use that one a lot. And when I'm in the homes, you're trying to use what they typically have at home, and most people have a blanket, so
mm-hmm.
it works out
Yeah.
easily.
Now, are you teaching them using the blanket swing with two people, or do you have a fancy way that you can use it with one person?
I can only use it with one person if the child is tiny enough, but typically two people.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. By the time we get to see them, they're really not that tiny, tiny little one anymore, unless there's something that they noticed right at birth.
yeah, yeah.
So you talk about that being your favorite treatment tool. Do you have a different favorite activity other than the blanket swing that you use?
You know, um, I love using balls of all sizes at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
And you could do so many different things with it. And that's kind of like been my treatment style is I'll find the kids love and go with it and come up with 10 different ways to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether, so balls go in containers and you can throw them and you can kick them and you can hide them and you can figure out how shake the container to get them out if they're too small, or a big therapy ball that we can, get some really good heavy work in. So um, I don't necessarily have a favorite, and I have come up with some just crazy activities using very few toys.
Mm-hmm.
So toys are not necessarily the let's go out and spend $1 million, because
No.
you can make fun out of a lot of different things in the house. A pillow can be a lot of fun. So
Yes, they can. The pillowcase can sometimes even be more fun.
absolutely, absolutely.
So what is your greatest challenge?
Um, so I guess it's kind of challenging to help these parents of very young children understand how everything works together and is going to affect their child later on in life.
Mm-hmm.
So parents are super focused, especially with the little ones. Are they sleeping, eating, walking, crawling, that kind of thing? And they're not understanding how the tummy time, for instance, is going to affect the handwriting down the road. And it's really hard to connect those dots for them when their mindset is just not there. And rightly so, don't get me wrong. Parents of young children are exhausted, and they're and
Mm-hmm.
and their focus is so not 5 years from now, and nor should it be. But trying to get them to understand, we really need to do this now, and later on in life, you're going to be so much easier if we can get past this hurdle.
And if you were to be able to replay it and change it, that would be the only way that they could really see that the difference. If they did one versus the other, they don't
Yeah.
understand the gift that is being given.
Yeah. Oh, and trust me, I've made mistakes. I've done the what if as a mom myself. Like, oh, I wish I would have done that, or oh, why didn't I
Me,
think of
me
that?
too. Me too.
So you can't go back.
Still, mine are adults now, and I still say, I did that wrong. I should have done
Yeah.
it this way.
Yeah. I firmly believe, I mean, mine are adults too, but I firmly believe that in the moment, you are making the best decision. And that's what I tell my parents all the time. Like, they're beating themselves up. Don't beat yourself up. I mean, you are in the moment, and in the moment, this is your best decision. Anybody could do something better when you look
When they
back
get
and
to
you have
think it
time.
through, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
But in that moment, yeah, that's exactly what happens.
yeah.
Um, so you're working a lot with that younger population who isn't specifically writing at this point. Let's go over into your clinic a moment. How much of the day over in your clinic is really handwriting and dysgraphia and those aspects of fine motor skills?
Um, So I'd say 80%. I mean, the way I look at fine motor and dysgraphia is in even with my babies that it's a building block, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so if they have really good strong hands and if they have good eye-hand coordination and visual perceptual skills, visual tracking, all of those things go into handwriting. Um, my whole day is that really, if you think of it
Mm-hmm.
that way.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
see it. Yeah, I see it all as a building block and stepping stones.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've had time to look at my hierarchy. As I was studying dysgraphia, I noticed that it was really a sensory motor memory combination that were the foundations, which we work on exclusively in OT.
Right.
But I did find that there was a gap between that level and incorporating the language into it. And word formation and sentence formation are that level. And then my top of the pier, my top of the pyramid is paragraph formation, where really that brings in that whole cognitive aspect. So I really have worked on isolating the 6 categories and giving different strategies that you can help with those particular pieces. And the area that I'm finding dysgraphic kids that don't have a whole lot of other motor related, neurologically related motor issues, I should say it that way, really are having memory issues. So as you're going back and you're thinking about it, and as school's getting back into session, think about that whole memory and look and see what you're finding as well.
Okay. Yeah, no, great advice.
Yeah. Um, my next question is one of those that I always go, do I really want to ask this question? But I always like to find out what's going on in the different areas of the world. So the school environment has its unique quirks. Every school is different. How are the collaboration with the special ed department, the teachers in the schools that you are in, or the relationship between your clinic and the schools?
Yeah, so I am incredibly fortunate. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the the deaf school that I work in is very small, and everyone there is special ed because it's considered a special ed school.
Mm-hmm.
So there is tons of collaboration, tons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, OT, PT, speech, audiology, teachers across the board. It is an amazing environment. And I also do some fill-in work, like if somebody's on a medical leave or maternity leave or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So I've worked in the schools recently, in public schools recently, and I I would say that 80% of the teachers are amazing. There are always some that are just kind of set in their ways maybe, or don't understand it, or
Mm-hmm.
I get that we're coming into their domain.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just approach it a little bit differently, and how can I help you? And I'm here for you. I'm here to make your job easier. So let me help you. And I might have a little bit of an edge for the younger therapists, just because I'm as old as the teacher and seasoned. So like, I'm not this whippersnapper coming in thinking I'm going to change the world or change their
Mm-hmm.
classroom. So maybe that helps me a little bit. But
Yeah. No,
it's,
that's honest. That's
yeah.
honest. How about with the parents? What is your relationship with the parents? Being that you are getting that really, really young and you're in the home, that's one aspect. But once they are in school, how's your relationship with the parent?
Yeah. So to be quite honest, like typically I would see parents once a year at IEP meetings, period.
Mm-hmm.
But now with the Zoom, I have I have a great relationship, and these parents are called on to do things that they are not typically used to doing. And they, to be quite
Mm-hmm.
honest, didn't know what we used to do with their kid anyway, because there what just wasn't that communication.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've had, for the most part, for the parents that have been participating, I've had a great relationship and rapport and a time to explain all of this. Like when they're
Mm.
doing something not necessarily doesn't look like they're doing something related to handwriting, even if it's dressing, like I can explain how that is related. And working on spacing between letters is related back to this whole spacing on feeding, on how
Mm-hmm.
they put things on their plate, and how, so like it's so nice to have this connection now with them, and
Yeah, you're
I'm
gonna need
enjoying it.
how do we continue to incorporate this connection with the kiddos down the road, even when they're back in the buildings?
Yeah.
That's a thought that I hadn't thought about before. But doing Zoom links while I'm working with the kid with the parent, so I'm in school working with the parent or the child, have the parent online. That sounds like a very interesting and unique
Yeah.
method to keep that connection going.
Or I wonder if nothing else, because some parents are still working or whatever. I wonder if we could take, maybe I could be more intentional and take more videos or more clips. But you get so caught up in your day
Yeah, you
that,
do. And there's not a lot of time for that extra little tidbit of stuff.
right. But in the long run, maybe it would go further and your progress would be faster. So
Yeah, maybe.
yeah,
Thank you for sparking that thought.
food for thought.
Yeah. So do you have any questions that you'd like to ask me before I get to my last two?
Yeah. So like, give me a little bit of history of where the OT came from for you, and how dysgraphia, like how did you narrow it down into that
Mm-hmm.
specific
Well,
area?
I I fell into OT by accident, even much more accident than you. Um, I had I have my first degree is in biochemistry, and I'm going, I can't do anything with this degree. And I'm talking to a friend who's a PTA, who I do not expect to be talking to one evening, and telling her where my vision was of where I'd like to do. And she's like, "You sound like an occupational therapist." And I'm like, "What is that?" Believe it or not, 6 months later, I was in school
Oh, there you go.
and freshly married too.
Oh,
So put more power to my husband for watching me through this journey.
yeah.
So I worked the gamut. I worked acute care. I've worked long-term care. I've worked home health. While I was in home health, I went back and I got my master's degree. And I wanted to work in peds for ever since I went into OT school and never had the opportunity. And I'm like, I'm doing it. I started a private practice in school, in cyber schools. So my kids are being taught at home, but through a certified teacher. So I started a private practice. After I started the private practice, I kept getting this question: why can my child read above grade level and not be able to write? So I was getting a lot of referrals for twice exceptional kids. And do you know what I mean by a twice
Mhm.
exceptional? Okay. So for those of you in the audience, a twice exceptional is one that's gifted in most areas, but still has a learning disability in another. I'm finding that a lot of those disabilities have to do with memory and writing. And went to try and find the answer to that question. And then kept narrowing it down. What is this dysgraphia? What is this? What is this? Found out that there was not a lot of information out there,
Right.
and started gathering what I could. I found some resources that had some concrete data to at least work from, and went, gee, there's a lot of OTs out here. There's a lot of teachers out there. There's a lot of parents out there that don't understand this. And I challenged myself, having dysgraphia myself. I challenged myself to write the book. And I wrote the book and got it published and started creating courses. So I'm working on creating some programs. You mentioned to me earlier that you are seeing a difference with your YouTube channel versus that one-to-one treatment. And what does that look like from here and beyond? I actually just started a program called Royalty Rights. Royalty Rights is taking that practitioner who's doing that one-to-one strategy and teaching them ways to take it and what we call in the business world, scale their business. So just something for you to think about. I have a course that goes along with the book called Handwriting, Brain Body Disconnect. And for those of you, this probably will be closed at the time that this actually gets published. It's going to close on July 31st. I'm doing some revamp to it. And then I'm going to open it up again later this year. But I'm just finding that, doing it round one, I have learned a whole lot more, and there's a lot of gaps now in the education. So I want to pull back and look at what I've already put there and come out with 2.0.
There you go.
So how I got started was a parent asking me that question and really starting to focus and be able to answer it for her, and realizing after starting to do that, gee, that's where I've been struggling all these years. So
yeah, it's fascinating. It's helpful.
Yeah, it is fascinating. Every time I ask the question about how did you become an OT and hear people's track and how they got there, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I think my next question is the AOTA question. So the AOTA has a tagline, living life to the fullest. What does that mean to Jen?
So I'm sure it's different for everybody, right? And it's really just getting up in the morning and doing your best for that day and for that moment. And for me right now, every day is different, and it changes. Literally, that answer could change on a daily basis. And talking about this YouTube channel thing, I started it for COVID for my personal families. And when it kind of took off, it was like, oh, I have a lot more knowledge in my head to share than I thought I did.
Mm-hmm.
And what I thought was typical thinking is not necessarily typical thinking
Nope.
for parents and or therapists.
Yeah. I've been surprised how many therapists have embraced the dysgraphia. It blows my mind how many.
And the numbers that you can reach. So for me, it's the helping people part. So I'm already in a helping field, right? But helping, 5 people a day versus 1,000 people a day is mind-boggling for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm just at, I'm in a place in my life. My kids are grown. They're taking care of themselves. I don't need to help them. Right.
Yeah, so, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
You and I are around the same boat. I have one off at the university getting her grad degree. I've got another one who's an adult who's not in college, but I think he's over there taking college courses that I don't know about.
There you go.
But he's very much a tech geek and is really into acuity. So it's kind of auditory acuity. Mm-hmm. Really interesting at how he's progressing through that. So right now he's studying recordings. So music recordings and audible and how to put it together that it maximizes the sound. I'm like, where did that come from? Yeah. Your father and I don't do any of that. Where did that come from?
It's a gift, honestly, a gift.
Yeah.
So is there something that I could be doing with the younger kids that maybe I'm missing that would help them with this whole?
So you're talking like the 3 to 5 year olds?
Yeah.
really work
We're younger.
on auditory memory, trying to get the auditory and the symbol collaborating together. So I'm phonological awareness. I don't know if you know what that means. That means really making that relationship to the sound that's going on to an object that's out there. So mom, really understanding the M, the O, and the M and the sounds and how they're articulated and getting them clearer. Especially if you're working on deaf and blindness. No,
Just deaf and hard and deaf
just
and
deaf
hard
and
of
hard of
hearing.
hearing. So that hard of hearing student really being able to understand the frequency intonations with the different vowels is going to be one of those important pieces for them. Somebody who is deaf, it's not going to be, the phonological awareness is not going to be
Right.
as an issue that they are going to need to be addressing. But the hard of hearing, understanding that those frequency intonations and rhythm, really incorporating rhythm into what you're doing and creating a flow.
Yeah. I
Which
do
I'm
a
sure
lot of
you're
rhythm
doing.
and timing. Yeah. And music, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
I'm bouncing again. So creating the whole gamut, the vision, the auditory, and the kinesthetic, we naturally do that, but it's one of those things that it's not intuitive to parents. So
okay.
as you're sharing your videos, think all three.
Okay. I will.
Yeah, and make sure that you take a moment here and share your YouTube channel with us.
So, okay. I actually have 2 YouTube channels. The
Okay,
first
I knew
one,
of one. There we go.
right? So here you go. So the first one is Play to Learn OT with Jen. And if you even just type in Jen Sopka, you would find it. And the other one I started with a girlfriend of mine who is in Tennessee right now. And we do a Zoom. We've done lots of different ones, but you can check it out. And it's more related to kids on the spectrum or with sensory processing disorder,
Mm-hmm.
kind of teasing out what the systems mean and toys that you can use or activities that you can use to help. And
Great.
that one is called Occupational Therapy with Kim and Jen. So neither of my titles are very original or
No, that's
catchy,
fine.
but that one has been fun as well.
That sounds very interesting. So we'll make sure that we link to both of those channels.
Perfect. Thank you.
And do you have a Facebook group or a page? No?
Nope, I do
Okay.
not. Nope.
Okay. So we will make sure that we have some people trying to find you on YouTube
Okay, thank you.
and yeah, learning how to take that from a one-to-one to one-to-many. It was also one of those dreams that I had down the road or in the past to really look at down the road, and ultimately one of my dreams is a research institute for
No,
dyspraxia.
you are ambitious.
I am. My husband says I'm overly ambitious.
Yeah, well,
We'll get there one day. But
think of all the people you're helping.
well, thank you. And you as well.
Thank you.
This has been Cheri Datter, your dysgraphia consultant, signing off with Jen Sopka, and we'll talk with you another week.
Thank you.